The Kremlin suddenly cannot confirm the next round of Ukraine peace talks, even though Kyiv says the meeting is expected in Switzerland next week. Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov claims there is no confirmation of Geneva talks and that Moscow will speak only once there is a clear understanding. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the opposite. In an interview with Piers Morgan Uncensored, he stated the next meeting is indeed planned in Switzerland. So while Kyiv speaks openly about the next step, Moscow is playing dead. For weeks, Russia projected confidence about negotiations, insisting talks must happen on its terms. Yet the moment a real venue and timeline appear, the Kremlin suddenly pretends nothing is happening. Either the talks are not going Moscow's way, or Russia still cannot accept Ukraine as an equal at the table. Russian intelligence services were preparing a series of contract killings targeting prominent Ukrainians and foreign nationals, with the network organizer operating from abroad. According to Ukraine's Prosecutor General's office, a joint operation with Moldovan authorities led to the arrest of 10 members of the group, 7 in Ukraine and 3 in Moldova, including the coordinator. Investigators say the cell acted under Russian intelligence supervision and was planning assassinations of at least 5 public figures. One of the intended targets was Ukrainian military intelligence spokesperson Andriy Yusov. Members of the network collected surveillance on victims' movements and residences, prepared weapons and escape routes, and were promised payments of up to $100,000 depending on the target's prominence. More than 20 coordinated searches in several Ukrainian regions uncovered firearms, explosives, communications devices, and evidence of contacts with the Russian handlers. Authorities believe the planned killings were intended to trigger major public shock and serve Russia's broader strategy of destabilization inside Ukraine. The investigation is going on. Europe must be at the negotiating table on Ukraine. That is the message from President Zelenskyy that he's sending after the latest round of US brokered talks with Russia in Switzerland ended once again without a breakthrough. The meeting was the third direct contact between Ukrainian and Russian envoys organized by Washington, but it produced no visible progress towards ending the war. Zelenskyy is now making clear that Kyiv expects Europe to remain fully involved in the process and that any future negotiations must reflect European positions alongside Ukraine's own. The stalled talks underline how far apart the sides still are on core issues, especially territory, and why Ukraine is pushing to prevent any settlement framework from emerging without Europe present.
It was essential that European partners were present in Switzerland, and this is the approach we will continue to follow to ensure Europe's views are fully reflected. I also want to thank our entire delegation for maintaining clear discipline and unity during the negotiations. It is crucial that Ukraine speaks with confidence, strength, and a single voice.
Western officials say Russia is showing no real sign it wants peace, and Moscow's choice of negotiator only reinforces that view. The Kremlin again sent Vladimir Medinsky, known for hardline rhetoric, to lead its delegation in the latest Geneva talks. During negotiations, Russia repeated maximalist demands, including territorial concessions and political control over Ukraine, while describing the discussions as merely businesslike. At the same time, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has been attacking the United States on global issues, portraying Russia as a defender of the non-Western world even as it continues its war in Ukraine. European officials now openly say Moscow appears to be deliberately prolonging negotiations rather than seeking compromises. But no one's surprised. At the same time, the United States steps back and holds direct military aid to Ukraine. Europe is increasingly showing it can carry the burden. According to Axios, over the past year, European governments have sharply expanded weapons deliveries and financial support, effectively replacing Washington as the main lifeline for Kyiv. Much of that support is now funded by European taxpayers, even when the weapons themselves are produced in the United States. European Ukrainian leaders argue this shift gives them both responsibility and the right to shape decisions on the war and any future settlement. Despite America still providing critical intelligence and strategic capabilities, the balance of support on the ground is changing. Europe is moving from junior partner to primary backer of Ukraine's defense and demonstrating that it can sustain the role even as US engagement becomes more uncertain. The latest round of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia has effectively collapsed. According to The Telegraph, negotiators managed to discuss only technical issues, the front line and possible ceasefire monitoring, but on the central question of territory, the side remains far apart. That failure is reinforcing a familiar belief in some Western capitals that Russia, with more troops and more equipment, can simply outlast Ukraine. But developments on the battlefield are beginning to challenge the assumption. In just 5 days, Ukrainian forces reportedly retook more than 200 square kilometers in the Zaporizhzhia sector, the fastest advance in 2.5 years, and a quicker pace than Russia achieved during its entire offensive push last December. Technology is playing a growing role. New Ukrainian fixed-wing FPV drones are striking tens of kilometers beyond the front line, while bypassing Russian electronic warfare defenses. Western-supplied armored vehicles are also helping narrow Russia's artillery advantage and improving crew survivability. Manpower pressure are also becoming more visible. Ukrainian estimates put Russian losses at over 1 million killed and wounded, with casualties now exceeding recruitment for several consecutive months. That strain is reflected in Moscow's increasing reliance on foreign recruits from Cuba to India and parts of Africa, highlighting the limits of Russia's own mobilizations pool. The Kremlin appears to be prolonging negotiations in the expectation that time would shift the balance further in its favor. Yet battlefield trends and attrition dynamics suggest time is no longer working exclusively for Russia. The trajectory is gradually tilting toward Kyiv. And here's the real grey cardinal of this war stepping into view. China is massively supplying drones to Russia, not directly, but through a quiet transit hub in Southeast Asia. According to Bloomberg, Thailand has emerged since 2022 as a key route for Chinese drones reaching Russia, and the numbers are striking. In the first 11 months of 2025 alone, Russia imported $125 million worth of drones from Thailand, accounting for almost the country's entire drone exports and an 8-fold increase for the previous year. During the same period, China shipped $186 million in drones to Thailand, effectively supplying nearly all of its imports. The scheme looks textbook. Chinese drones enter Thailand and are then directed to Russia through intermediaries and shell companies. Some of the shipments include civilian models from Chinese manufacturer Autel that are known to be used on the battlefield. One major trading firm involved was even sanctioned by the United Kingdom for supplying technology to the Russian military, then simply changed its name and continued operating. Washington has repeatedly said China provides the bulk of dual-use components sustaining Russia's war effort. Beijing denies any military support and insists on neutrality. The trade flows tell a different story. So while China presents itself globally as a mediator, behind the scenes it is enabling Russia's drone warfare against Ukraine. Beijing does not shout. It does not threaten, it just supplies. While the world focuses on negotiations over Ukraine and the role of the United States here, another axis of the war is becoming increasingly clear in the background. Russia and Iran are now conducting joint military drills amid rising tensions between Tehran and Washington. The Hill reports. Iran has already become a key military partner for the Kremlin, supplying drones that Russia uses extensively against Ukraine. Now this cooperation is moving to a new level, openly demonstrating mutual support on the global stage. At the same time, global oil prices have surged to a 6-month high. Markets reacted immediately after Donald Trump issued fresh threats to Iran over its nuclear program, and Tehran announced joint naval exercises with Russia near the Strait of Hormuz, a checkpoint through which roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes. Traders Leaders quickly priced the risk of the escalation and a potential disruption to energy flows. In effect, Moscow and Tehran are signaling that they are prepared to act together not only against Ukraine, but more broadly against the Western security order. Russia gains weapons and strategic foothold on the Middle East. Iran gains technology and political cover. What is gradually emerging is a military political axis stretching from Eastern Europe to the Persian Gulf. And it is already shaping not only the war in Ukraine, but the stability of global energy markets. Around 10,000 North Korean troops are currently on Russian territory, where they are gaining real combat experience in the war against Ukraine. Assessments from Ukrainian military intelligence and South Korea's National Intelligence Service indicate that these forces are being trained in artillery, reconnaissance, and multiple types of drones under actual battlefield conditions. Units are rotated back to North Korea after deployment, where many of these soldiers become instructors, transferring newly acquired skills across the North Korean military. In effect, Russia has turned its war against Ukraine into a live training ground for Pyongyang's army. The long-term risk is what happens next. These troops are not returning with theory, but with a hands-on knowledge of modern warfare, including drone operations and counter-strike tactics. That experience could significantly strengthen North Korea's military capabilities once it flows back into the regime's armed forces. She once wore ballroom dresses and taught children to move to music. Today she carries a sniper rifle and covers assault units in combat. Tatiana Himion's story is about a life that vanished overnight and another that arrived with no way back. The 47-year-old mother of two from eastern Ukraine was a ballroom dance instructor, an international judge, and the owner of her own studio before Russia's full-scale invasion to Ukraine. Her days were filled with competitions, travel, and constant movements across Europe and Asia. At the time, she says, it all felt like routine. Now it is the routine she misses the most. February 21st stopped the music. That morning she understood she could no longer continue dancing and had to join the army. After training in Europe and service in several units, Tatiana became a sniper in an air assault regiment. It was a deliberate choice. She's saying shooting had always been a part of her life. While walking in the park with her children, she would step into a small shooting range and hit the bullseyes. She explains her decision in an unexpected way. For her, sniping is a creative profession. She loves mathematics and studied physics and math at university, and the blend of precision and creativity felt natural to her. In combat, she works with a calm focus like an athlete in competition. But the war has changed her permanently. She speaks about it quietly. She says she has become a different person and feels as if the strongest emotions of her life have already been lived through. Not because she does not want to live, she does. She wants to climb mountains, swim in the ocean, see the world, but she knows she will never feel the same way again.
Life goes on. This is our life, and this is our choice. But a choice made within the realities we found ourselves in. We are ordinary people who simply ended up in extraordinary circumstances. There wasn't a single moment, no sudden click when I felt that my whole life had changed. But now, it feels almost impossible to return to the life we had before.
Tatiana's story is not only about war, it is about ordinary lives pushed into extraordinary reality and about the painful truth that sometimes there is simply no returning to who you were before. They woke up to a dog barking. When they looked outside, Russian soldiers with the white armbands were already walking down their street. In that moment, the Vnukov family understood their village in eastern Ukraine was occupied and the life they knew was over. For days, they hid in a damp basement as shelling pounded above them and groundwater kept rising from below. Russian troops with rifles patrolled the streets, searched homes and set up checkpoints. Who you were, where you worked, what you believed could suddenly put you in danger. Ina decided to flee with her teenage teenage son, knowing that staying could cost them their lives. Her husband Alexei remained behind for several days to watch over their home. That was when Russian soldiers dragged him off the street, pushed a rifle to the back of his head and pulled the bolt. He was certain he was about to be executed. Alexei survived and later escaped as well. The family reached Estonia with one suitcase between them. Today they are building a new life, working, raising their young daughter, and trying not to dwell on the fact that their parents still live in the occupied village, where only a fraction of residents remain and basic services have collapsed.
We put all the documents in that suitcase. Everything we had. We had warm clothes on us, plus warm clothes as spares. Socks, towels, toothpaste, and that's it. We came here with that suitcase.
They have the right to live at home for a certain amount of time, and then, as non-citizens of the Russian Federation, they have to leave. And this, of course, leaves almost no opportunity to refuse a Russian passport, especially since a Russian passport is tied to a whole range of other things. You can't find a job, you won't get medical care, your children don't get educational services. Well, you're simply excluded.
Thank you for watching. For more content about Ukraine and the world, please subscribe.